Hello everyone, today we are going to be installing Drupal using the Softaculous script installer that is part of Cpanel. So if your hosting provider has Softaculous available, depending on which theme you have, it may be in a different location, but in most cases you'll find it in the software/services area, and you'll see an icon that looks much like this with the word soft there. It should say Softaculous just under it. And once you've found that icon, you want to go ahead and click on that, and that will bring up the Softaculous page, much like this. So you should see in top scripts it will have the Drupal package, or if you don't see it here under top scripts, you can go over here where it says portal/CMS. Click the little arrow there, it'll drop down and you'll see Drupal under there. So you can click it in either location. You can click the install there, or you can click here. So we'll go ahead and click there. And if you click there, you should get a page that looks much like this, where it gives you a bit of an overview, and at the top you should see an install page, or button rather, right here. So you want to click that install button. So once you've clicked the install button, you will get the software setup page. And this page looks much more complicated than it really is. So it's actually pretty simple, and we'll go through that quickly here, showing you the different options. So the first thing you'll see is choose the version you want to install, and you can see that it'll generally give you a few different versions. If you have specific modules and plugins that require an older version, you may have to select that, but in most cases you're just going to want to select the newest version. So in this case it's 7.19, so we'll select that. Choose protocol. You'll just leave that as HTTP is fine. Unless you're a more advanced user and you understand SSL certificates and have that set up by your hosting provider already, then you may need to check HTTPS in that box there. The choose domain here, what that is for is if you have a hosting provider that allows you to have more than one domain in a single account, then you can have the multiple domains you have with that host in that drop down there. So you can select which domain you actually want it installed to. In our case, we've just got the one domain, so we'll leave that as is. Next, you will see in directory. And this is generally the most confusing part for most people. What this is really asking for is the folder name that you'd like to install to if you want a folder. So, for example, if you're installing to mydomain.com, if you leave it as default Drupal, it's going to be mydomain.com/Drupal to get to the website. So you may want it just on mydomain.com. If that's the case, you would delete that. You may want it in some place like mydomain.com/CMS, so you would type that in. So we'll use that as an example. In most cases, if you're just going to your domain, you want to leave that blank. Now the next thing down from there, you will see database name. This, you can leave it as the default. It's not a problem to have it as that default name. If you do have multiple domains that you have set up in the single hosting account, you may want to change that though to something that sort of matches or similar to your domain, so that you can tell which database goes with which domain. If you ever have to go back and make backups, restore, or make changes like that, you'll easily be able to tell which database goes with which domain. In our case, since we only have the one domain, then we're only going to have one database, so it's pretty obvious. So we'll leave that as default. Below that, you should see here cron jobs. So the cron job is essentially a scheduling task. It's telling it to run the script every hour to make updates, make changes. It can be things like if users are logging in and out, it will update to show which ones are online, which ones are offline. Those types of things are all handled by the scheduling of the cron job. So in general, the default is fine, leaving it exactly as it is. If you have, if you're familiar with Drupal and you've got specific modules that require different settings for that, you can then change that there. Change it, for example, update every 30 minutes instead of every hour, that type of thing. All of that would be handled right there. But for standard install, the default is just fine, so that's what we will leave that as. And we'll go down here and you'll see site settings is next, and under site settings it's just the site name, so you can essentially name that whatever you'd like. When you go to the website, this is going to display as your site name, so you would change that to like your domain name or the company name, whatever you may be setting this up for. After that, you will see database settings. and it's going to have the table prefix. Again, what it's filled in, the default is just fine, so you can leave that as is, no problem. Next, you will see an admin account. You'll have the admin username, password, and email address. So the username you can change to whatever you'd like, or you can leave as admin. The password you definitely want to change. The default it's got in there as pass is just too easy for someone to guess, because it's sort of the default for any Softaculous install. So you definitely want to change that. You want to make sure it's something pretty strong that someone's not going to be able to guess, but you also want to make sure it's something that you can remember or that you'll want to go ahead and write down. You can also click this key icon here, and it'll bring up a random generated password. You see it fills in there. So we're just going to go with test123 as a password for our example install. Next, you'll have admin email, and that you'll just want to fill in your email address. That's going to be used when you make changes on there, or when you get email notifications, or if you forget your password. All of that gets sent to your admin email that you want to add. Below that, you'll see advanced option. In most cases, you do not want to check this. What this is essentially for is it's going to automatically send you emails if there's a new version of Drupal available, so you can then come back into Softaculous and tell it to update. If you check this, it doesn't send those emails. And generally, in most cases, unless you're specifically using an older version for some reason, due to a module or something like that requiring it, you'll want to know when there's an update and actually update. So you want to leave that unchecked in most cases. And after that, you will see the install button, but we'll skip that for just a second to cover this here. What this is for is you can put in your email address again, and it's going to email you the details, basically everything that was above, and send that to your email so that you have a record, which is generally not a bad idea to do. That way you can always look back and check that. If you need to know which database name or that sort of thing, you can always look back at that email to see what it is. Now, after you've put that in, if you choose to have it email that to you, then you'll just go ahead and click the install button. And you'll get this page here where it's going to show you that it's installing, and it's going to give you a percentage. It generally doesn't take very long to go through that. You should see it move along pretty quickly. Maybe 5 minutes at the most for an install, but almost every time you're going to see it in a minute or two at the most. And you can see how that skipped along pretty quickly there as it started installing everything. And it's almost complete now. Okay, and you can see it's now completed the installation, so you'll get this "Congratulations, the software has been installed" page, and it will have links to the page you installed it to, as well as an admin link. And so you'll want to make note of both of those, and you can then log into the admin and start setting up your new Drupal page.